Okay, I've taken a clip from the YouTube, and the author made a very good point. We should watch our thoughts and see our thoughts, detach from the thoughts, so that we can live an existence away from our thoughts. I thought it's interesting, and I have some comments about it, so I have clipped it.
Our suffering stems from a fundamental misunderstanding. We confuse our true self with the stories we tell ourselves. These stories, which are crafted by our past experiences, beliefs, roles, and labels, become the lens through which we see the world and ourselves. You might say, I'm a parent, I'm a professional, I'm a failure, I'm someone who has been hurt. But these identities, these stories, aren't who you really are. Think about it for a moment.
It is very clear, isn't it, that our thoughts are the causation of a lot of our pain in our life, right? The thoughts are our imagined state that we are in, and very often we're influenced by those thoughts. That's very true. And the stories that we tell in the thoughts that we have, even the ideas of ourselves that we tell in the stories that we have, are actually kind of illusion, and they're creating a problem for ourselves. Yes, they're actually manifesting all the pain that is inside us. The fear that we have is personified outside, and the joy that we have is also personified outside. We don't see everything in ourselves, but instead we see it from the outside point of view. But that's what most people have fallen into in their life.
If you stripped away the labels of parent, worker, success, or failure, would the core of your being still exist?
And how do we solve that? And many times in my video I have suggested you should observe your thoughts, because when you observe your thoughts for some, you are able to detach yourself from the story that you tell yourself. And in this way you find independency in yourself.
Observe your thoughts as if you were watching someone else's mind at work. Notice how one thought leads to another, creating a constant stream of internal commentary. Ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? That silent awareness behind the mental chatter, that's you, the real you.
Now, this author is saying that the silent awareness that observes the thoughts around you is the real you. But in my opinion, with all respect to him, in my opinion, it is not the real me. The real me is actually in between the observer and the thoughts. And how do I get there? I get there only through resonance. It's important to realize that when I observe the thoughts, there's an observer watching the thought. Isn't that correct? That's true. So in other words, the thought is one of a two, and the observer itself is one of a two. In other words, it is still duality. You can't simply get to the me by just merely observing your thought. I tried that in my meditation. The angels told me to observe my thought. So I did that all the years. And for 10 years I did that. And I saw no result. Of course, truly, I'm aware that the thoughts are not part of me. That's true. Because I observed my thoughts, I was able to get an independence from the thought. That's very true. And as a result of which, much of my sadness and unhappiness of life kind of detached from me. That's true. But then, I wasn't me yet. The reason is because the observer that observes the thought is just one of the two. That's the point I'm trying to emphasize. Has not touched me. And the angel specifically told me, he said that you have to go to the place between the yin and the yang. You have to go to a place between life and between death. And I tried going to that place by observing my thoughts as I was instructed. But it's not easy to do that. Just observing my thoughts, I did it for 10 years. It was only one day when everything began to change. When I observed my thoughts, suddenly it turned bright. The observer is also turned bright. Where am I? Suddenly I realized that I am between the two. And this is resonance. And this is presence. Now let me turn you to the Torah. to the Bible, okay? Now, God said, let there be light, and there was light. But before God said that there was light, there was a voice that God speaks. That's right. And how did God speak the voice? Before that verse, it says that, and the breath of God hovers over the waters. So in other words, before the thoughts arises, before there was an observer at the light, there's already the voice. And before the voice, there's already the breath. So we have to get to the breath. Now let's study the verse carefully. God said, let there be light, and there was light. But very interestingly, it is also stated that God divided the light into two parts, right? One was the lightness, and the other one was the darkness. Notice that God divided it into two parts. So in other words, when I observe my thought, actually in truth, I'm using one part of the light to observe the other part of the light. And because I'm doing that, I'm just one of the two. So what we must do is to unite the two. We cannot be one of the two. We must be just one. Because in the beginning, the first light that came through is only one. It's God who divided them into two parts. Got it? Yes. But then God created that light. God spoke. Before the voice, there is the breath. And the breath is only one. So that's why I said to you many times, it's important for us to return to the breath. Because breath is the one. But voice has got two parts. One is internal, that came through the throat. And the other one is the voice that you hear from me. Whereas breath is a bit different. Breath is the very essence of your being. And breath is one. I hope I'm not confusing you. But the point I'm trying to stress is that you need to follow my videos because there's a lot of points out here. Too many points to understand. But the basic idea I'm trying to present to you is that the observer of the thought is not the finality of it. It's the in-between the thoughts, which is the I am.
Here's a challenge. The next time you feel stuck in a label or story, whether it's I'm not good enough or I always fail, pause and ask yourself, is this thought truly me, or is it something I'm simply observing? That moment of questioning opens up space for transformation. The trap of identity is one of the greatest obstacles to our freedom. When we let go of these self-imposed limitations, we open the door to a deeper, more authentic existence. Living in the awareness of your true self, beyond the stories and labels, allows you to experience life with clarity, peace, and connection.
But this peace that you are referring to is still an observer effect. This infinite awareness that you are saying you have is still an observer effect. It's not breath. No doubt you're seeing the world from a more independent viewpoint, but it is not really me. And of course, I would perfectly encourage you to enter into the observer. And it's much easier to do that than to enter breath. But breath, well, is a bit different. Can you remember what Jesus said? Jesus said something very awesome to Nicodemus. He said, a wind will blow at you, and you do not know where the wind will come or go. That is when you are born again. This breath word is very clear in Buddhism, right? You find that the devotees go to meditate on the breath. And it's also very evident in Tai Chi, right? You find that the practitioner will try to concentrate on the chi that is moving around the body and in between the hands. What are they doing? Yes, they are trying to handle the breath. Many a times, You are told that you need to reorientate your mind and to observe your mind. That's very good. But that's not the end of it. That's right. You can do your observation of your own thoughts. I did that for 10 years, but it doesn't work until I turn those thoughts into breath, even the observer to breath. Then I discovered the me. I don't know how to explain to you, I will tell you. Just follow my video. For thoughts is very important. For thoughts create our world. At the same time, you need to observe your thoughts so you can be detached from the world you live in. That's very, very true. But thoughts is not the finality of it. Even the observer is not the finality of it. The finality is to turn thoughts and the observer to breath. And that is true resonance. For myself, I found no other way to do it except through resonance. I've tried to explain it in my other videos, but I'll continue to do it in my future videos. Just bear with me. It's a very long journey, I must say. But there are some who tells me that all I need to do would be to remove my thoughts. They say to me that. They say that thoughts is causing me problem. They say that. That's true. It makes me worry. They say, yes, that's true. So what they did was they just snap off the thoughts. In other words, when they meditate, they would diminish the thoughts altogether. They tell me that that's the solution. I respect them. But what I'm trying to say is that this world we lived in is basically thought. Let's get it straight. You perceive this world with your eyes. You perceive this world via your thoughts. If you don't have thoughts, there is no world out there. Okay. And if there is no world out there, you say that you're at peace. But the point is that, what's the purpose of being at peace when there's nothing out there in this world you lived in? The whole idea why God told the people to go to the promised land was that they should be living in a world and they shouldn't be going to heaven. Heaven is to be brought to earth. There's no need to go to heaven if there is nothing there but just simply infinite awareness and peace. That's not what we want. We want to live in this world and yet have that peace. We want to live in this world and yet discover I am. Isn't that right? So we don't want to snap off our thoughts. We don't want to do that. Notice very interestingly what God said. He said, and God said, let there be light. Why would God need to create light? Because seeing is important. That's why God created light. God created light because thinking is important. Because we live in the world of thoughts. And so we need light to see. So using light or using the observable effect won't solve the problem because the light that we are using is one of a tool so that we can see. I'm encouraging you to be part of this world and not to get out of the world. So if you are able to observe your thoughts, that's very good already. Because by observing your own thoughts, you're able to make sure that you are not affected by your thoughts. And in this way, you'll find some peace. That's right. But what I'm emphasizing is that entering the observer is not the finality of it. We need to enter breath. And to do that, I do it through resonance. We want to have peace, but we don't want to have peace by closing our eyes and merely meditate. We want to have peace, yes, that's right. But we don't want to have peace by being a celibate and don't produce children and go to the monastery and live a secluded life. We don't want to have peace this way, right? We want to have peace, that's true. We want to have infinite awareness, that's true. But we want to live in this world. We want to open our eyes and see and live of our thought and take the challenge of the world we are in. We don't want to go out somewhere, right, closing our eyes and say that we have peace. So I'm challenging you. I'm urging you to discover me. For that's the only place where you're out of everything, but yet you're in this world. That's what Jesus said. I take you out of this world, but you're still in this world. That's the most important point. That is called enlightenment. To be out of this world and yet be in the world. Not close your eyes and see nothing. So I'm sure you realize that seeing nothing is not the solution of life. Our life begins by seeing. The whole world that we are having in this world is all our thoughts. We lived in our thoughts. We travel in our thoughts. Get it straight. So if we want to see nothing, we might as well be dead. This is the world we live in. It's the world of thoughts. So we don't get rid of these thoughts. Some of them would say that these thoughts, we detach from it and we just observe the thought. That's good. But there's another better way. These thoughts that we have, we don't get rid of it. Instead, we hear the voice of the thoughts. That's right, we hear the voice of the thought. Because when you hear the voice of the thought, you will realize that the thoughts become closer to you. The phenomena of this world becomes closer to you when you hear the voice of the world. Okay, after you hear the voice, you have to catch the breath of that voice. That's when you discover the breath that is within the voice. And this is how you discover life in this world. If you simply remove your thoughts, it's just like dead. It's just like being dead. And obviously, if you see nothing, do nothing, obviously you are at peace. But that isn't the me. You have to enter the voice of the thought, and through the voice into the breath. And the breath is your being, your life this time. And so go to that life and not go into nothingness. You have to follow my videos, subscribe, learn more. Some of you may be wondering, how do I hear the voice of my thought? But I just simply will tell you, don't you find that when you voice your thinking, you feel good? Better than just merely thinking your thoughts. Isn't that right? Because when you voice your thought, there's a sense of I. Isn't that right? Good. Through that voice, you must turn it to breath. Wow. You got to follow my videos. Let me lead you to your home. So no doubt, thoughts is a kind of distraction, right? But thoughts is also our identity in this world. Our karma is affecting our thoughts as well. We can't get out of their thoughts. But thought is a mirror of our soul. And it's through the thoughts that we enter the thought. And how? We hear the voice in the thoughts. We don't get rid of thoughts at all. We instead hear the voice of the thought and then discover the breath and the life within the thought. And this is the secret of I am. But can we change those thoughts? Yes, there are many people who say that they can change their thoughts. That's true, but it's very difficult to alter the thought processes because your karma is embedded in those thoughts. You have to take time for you to redeem your thoughts, to reverse them. It takes time. But while you do that, while you redeem the thoughts, you must hear your voice of the thought. That's where you enter soul, and that's where you discover the life, and that's where you discover I am.